Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, guess what? Here on the Alex Garrett One Leg Up Network, we have back one of my buddies, Jacob Barringer. JacobBSpeaks on X. Jacob, welcome back to my show.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, happy to be here. It's always great to sit down and have a conversation with you.
We caught up in spring training and got your thoughts because you run the Yankees Empire along with a few others. And, I think when we talk about the spring is what's happened is a little more than we expected maybe at the time because we weren't sure. But here we are, one game away from clinching the division. How about that?
Yeah, I've always been pretty optimistic about the team. I wasn't sure if it was going to be us or the Orioles that came out at the end of the season, but now that we have a 99.9% chance of clinching, with the magic number being one game, I'm extremely happy about it. It's been a up and down season as you would expect. No team has 100 wins since the first time since 2014. And it's been an interesting season, but I think the pieces are finally coming into place here at the right time.
I think what happened was they got a lot of injuries early on, which we thought would never really come back from. Yet Schmidt's come back. John Birdie, who people forget played a key role when he was playing in April, early May, and now he's back at full force. Of course, Rizzo looks like himself again. I mean, I know he hasn't hit a homer yet, but he's getting his hits, and he got a big one the other night. So the point is all these guys have come back, and they've really come back into their own.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's happened to us in previous seasons is we've always had the injury bug. And, a lot of teams deal with that too. But for the Yankees, it seems like we always have a lot of our key impact players out. And what you said earlier is kind of right. We would have the injuries, but then we could never pull ourselves out of that slump. But I think we've witnessed that happen now. I mean, we've done really well. I think the last game that we lost was that unfortunate game against the Red Sox, and we're cooking. We're cooking now at the right time of the season, and a lot of that's because we did get a lot of those impactful players back.
I know you follow the ball down in the Carolinas. Talk about your local team as well. I see you down there following their team.
Yeah, the Gastonia Baseball Club. Yeah, it's funny. And this is really whenever you think about the postseason, how crazy it is and how it's really just a wash. The Gastonia Baseball Club is part of the Atlantic League, Atlantic Professional Baseball League, and it's a league that has ties to the MLB, the Major League. The Major League actually picks up players from the ALPB sometimes and buys contracts from them. And you'll see a lot of different players come in through that league that are trying to get back into the majors or have, aged out, or that's like Clint Frazier. We all remember him. He played for the Charleston Dirty Birds this year before he retired back in July. And then there's just some other, players that have previous MLB experience that you'll catch on some of those teams sometimes. But my team, it's the third year of existence for them, and they've won, I think, just over 65% of their games over the 3 years, which is the highest win percentage in the league's history, and which is, that's a pretty great win percentage. And they had the most home runs of any ball club this year, the best record. We're really cooking going into the postseason. They enter a 3-game series against the Charleston Dirty Birds, lose the first 2, they're out of the playoffs already. So it's just crazy how that happens,
Well, and you were up at the stadium earlier this season, by the way, and then we got to catch up next year. But you look at those two different things, right? You got the minor league ball, the independent league ball, and the major leagues. That independent minor league ball feels fun to be at every game, right? The energy is so electric because the crowd's into it every game.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, down where I'm at, near Charlotte, we have the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate for the White Sox, who have not been great this season. But it's always cool to go to a Charlotte Knights game. There's always great attendance. I think they have some of the highest attendance in all of the minor leagues, a beautiful ballpark with a great skyline, maybe one of the best skylines in all the AAA ball fields. And yeah, it's definitely interesting and cool to go to those minor league league games, see some of those players come up through the ranks, and maybe even check out the Rail Riders whenever they come to town. So it was a cool opportunity to see Oswald Peraza and Ben Rice before he came up, and some of those players too.
Oh yeah, no, it's fun, and of course we had our eyes on Somerset because a lot of those guys went through there too. So it's been an interesting minor leagues, and of course the Rail Riders keep going. I think the Renegades have been doing good. So it's been, and the Patriots. I mean, they've got a great minor league system for the Yankees as well. So it's been interesting to watch. Let's talk about Jacob Barringer for a minute because I know this month means a lot to you because you post about it and you're very open about your beating cancer and kicking ass and whatnot. Now it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, so maybe people that follow you may not be aware you had this cancer when you were younger, right?
Yeah, so it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. We're kind of coming up on the tail end of it here, and through my Twitter/X account, I did do a big post about it in the beginning, and did a charity donation. And I always like to bring more eyes to things like that because it's it's a disease that affects everybody, and unfortunately, it affects children too. I was 11 whenever I was diagnosed. It was October 31st, so Halloween of 2007, and then basically had that 8-month treatment. I was diagnosed with stage 4 Burkitt's lymphoma, and at the time the prospects weren't great. They basically ended up having to do a experimental treatment, sort of. They basically threw all the drugs at me to see what would work, and almost miraculously it did. So yeah, now I'm here talking to you about it, and I will be 16 or 17 years out coming up in May. So it's whenever I think about this month, and whenever I have those other friends and people that those friends that I made through my experience, because we were all kids, it's good to celebrate them, right? So yeah, it's definitely a month that I like to draw some eyes to.
Talk about your love of baseball that got you through this cancer.
Yeah, for sure. I was a kid, and it was interesting. I think it was just the year before. Actually, it was the season leading up to me being diagnosed. I mean, I was playing Little League, and that was the season that I probably had my best hitting season of my young baseball career. I'd hit my first home run that season. And I mean, I was all about baseball at that age, and just watching the teams come up. And it wasn't too long after I was out of treatment that the Yankees won their last World Series in 2009. A funny story about it was it's kind of funny how information spreads about people, especially whenever something happens to a kid and adults start talking about it. Because people were always, I had a lot of issues that were leading up to me being diagnosed with the cancer, where, because I had tumors that were in my head, so it was affecting my eyesight, and, made my left eye turn and close involuntarily. And it was funny because one parent of another kid that was on my team had heard or was telling people that what was wrong with me is that I'd been hit in the head with a baseball. And that was not the case. It was actually cancer. I wish I'd been hit in the head with the baseball instead. But yeah, I'm just kind of being around the game, and looking forward to that next season. Looking forward to me personally being able to get back on the field. I mean, I played baseball, basketball. I was getting ready to get into football too. I was ready to, come get out of treatment, build my body back up, and get back on the field and start performing.
And I know that the Yankees got you through it just because you became a big fan of them. But I have to say, if you don't mind me asking this, the pain endured during this whole process. I mean, it's something you don't wish on anybody, but can you walk us through it real fast? And did this experience change your perspective once you knew you beat the cancer?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is the pain, or a lot of people, kind of get queasy whenever they start thinking about this stuff. But I've always been an open book, and for me, one of my perspectives is, since I've gone through that, I've always believed that, pain is relative, and you really find out what the human body can take whenever you've gone through a really painful disease like that. Now, every cancer is different. I had Burkitt's lymphoma, uh, and since I was stage 4, I had tumors basically all over my body. So the the first tumor started in a lymph node in my neck. It traveled up to my brain, tumors around the brain, down my spinal column, into my internal organs, and affected everything but my liver, I believe. But what the result of some of those tumors were is it did cause, that immense pain just from the cancer itself, because I had tumors pressing on nerves. I remember being outside, uh, waiting to be picked up from school, and I had, the tumors on my spine were pressing on those nerves, and those nerves led down, actually led down to my legs, and I had intense leg pain. And it was just kind of hard for me to stand. So I'm laying down, waiting for my mom to pick me up, just in a lot of pain. And the tumors that were in my abdomen and in my stomach, pressing on my internal organs, from my stomach to my pancreas to my spleen, was causing a lot of pain in my stomach as well. And I would go to the doctor and I would tell them about the leg pain, and the doctor would say, well, you're getting ready to hit puberty. It's probably growing pains, stuff like that. Because no one thinks that a kid who looks relatively healthy, that's 11 years old, has cancer, right?
Well, it's amazing you just brought this up, because I was wondering how the doctors were getting you through it. It sounds like some of them at the beginning were kind of, I would say, denying it, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say denying, but I just don't think the thought crossed their mind really. I mean, there was a lot missed, definitely, throughout my cancer experience. I mean, whenever I started having issues with my eye that I brought up earlier, I went to a neurologist. He thought I had a subdural hematoma from playing football, and as a result of a concussion. So it was putting strain on that muscle and making the eye move, which was not the case. It was a tumor pressing on those nerves. I had multiple MRIs and CT scans done. They didn't find anything then. And this is over the course of about 2 to 3 months leading up to me actually being diagnosed. The way that I actually found that I was diagnosed was I went to the eye doctor to look at my eye, to actually look in it and see what the issue was. He looked in it, looked at my mom, dilated it, and said if his eye doesn't come undilated by the end of by the evening, take him to the hospital tonight. If it does become undilated, you can wait till the morning. So my eye did become undilated. She took me to the hospital then. They did a more comprehensive look over of my body, saw the lump that was kind of bulging out from my neck, did a biopsy on it. It was supposed to just be a biopsy, but once they cut open my neck, saw what was in there, it was probably about a 3 to 4 inch large tumor. They just ended up taking the tumor out. And then that's basically what confirmed, okay, he has cancer. So they did a more comprehensive looked, did the MRI, did the whole dye thing, and saw in just countless tumors, just, all throughout my body. And, got diagnosed, and they had to put together a treatment plan for me.
Did you go down the chemo treatment route? And if so, what can you tell parents of kids going through this today, and even adults that are very nervous about having to go through this? What's your advice to all ages today?
Yeah, definitely. I did. I went just chemotherapy. I didn't have to do radiation or immunotherapy. Thankfully, I didn't have to do a bone marrow transplant through this. I know a lot of my friends have had to do that, especially my leukemia friends. So I did straight chemo, some really tough ones in there. And, of course, there's the effects that come with the chemo. I mean, everybody knows the dramatic effects of losing your hair, losing a lot of weight. That's things that everybody thinks about. But, there was a situation where, where it does really deplete your immune system, your white blood cells, everything like that. So all the bacteria in your mouth start to cause sores in your mouth, and you can't eat because, your mouth is full of sores. It hurts to eat. So there's just all this different kinds of pain coming from different places. And that's just physical. I mean, as a child, you see your parents that have a child with cancer. I'm an only child. I'm an only son. So having them, deal with this that was going on, obviously the financial burden of it all, it was a lot for people to take. And I think I was at a perfect age at that point for me because I was old enough to understand what was happening and what was going on, but I was young enough to never have the thought cross my mind that it would take me, right? So I think that that's what helped me. And through that, ever since going through my treatment, ever since coming out of it, building my body back up, and even having ancillary things that are happening now, where every month or so I have to do a immunotherapy treatment on myself because some of my counts from my immune system never came back. So I still have things I have to do that now that are as a result of my cancer. It's just about mindset for me. And I try to go back to that 11-year-old mindset of, I know what's happening to me right now, but if I have the mindset that I'm going to make it through this, that I have to be strong for those people around me, that, you know, I can't just lay in bed all day. I can't feel sorry for myself. I have to get up and make this happen. I have to show, the universe, God, whoever, that I'm willing to fight for this life that I have. So it's always been about mindset for me.
This is powerful, and my fiance is watching this. She's getting emotional about just hearing your story because it's something that I know you've talked about even in the public space. But before we get there, the first time, Jacob, that you beat cancer, you get through all this, and you touch the baseball again, or even any sport, like what was it like getting back out on the field? Did you get back on the field in any capacity?
Yeah, man, it was great. I think the first thing I did, because the way I came out of treatment on May 18th, 2008, that's when I was officially done with chemo, and I spent the entire summer building my body back up, eating my vitamins, eating the food I needed to eat. I mean, whenever I was going through treatment, I went from being around 120 pounds at 11 years old down to about 80. So I had lost 40 pounds. So I'd make some weight back up. That summer after I got out of chemo, I shot up like 6 inches. So I was really tall and skinny and lanky and trying to get my coordination about my body. So I spent that summer, kind of learning in my body again, getting my coordination back, eating what I needed to eat, being healthy, working out, playing the sports. I wasn't able to get back to baseball first, but I believe the first sport I got back to was basketball, which was, my primary sport. And whenever I was in school, that's what I was best in. I mean, I always loved playing baseball and I was good, but I was always best at playing basketball. So I got back on the court. And because I had grown that 6 inches, I went from like 5'2" to 5'8", and then grew a few
It's like
more.
you became a center overnight or something.
I
like
did. It was awesome because obviously that's what I played. I was a center at that age because I was taller than all the other kids, and I just had this energy and this ferocity about me. Like even if I wasn't the best shooter at that age because my coordination was all out of whack, there wasn't one rebound or one shot that was going up where I wasn't touching the ball or tipping the ball to someone or grabbing down the rebound. I just had this ferocity about me that I even look back to now in my old age of 28, right? That I'm like, wow, I had so much energy just to just have that thriving life, and that's something I want to try to live through today. But it was great. And then getting back on the baseball field, I was able to play the next season, coming back that next summer, spring and summer, and really get back in the swing of things, literally and figuratively. And it was good to do that again too. So it was
your
definitely.
Classmates get root word? What I mean by that is when you went back to the basketball court, or even the field, were your classmates like cheering you on? Because we see a lot of those videos where kids come back from a cancer treatment and then they're just treated like a hero. Did that happen? Did the school get word that you were going through this?
Yeah, the school, it's interesting because whenever I was going through it, the school itself was very supportive. The community was very supportive. And I do definitely need to shout out to everybody that helped me through it because it wasn't just me. I mean, aside from my parents doing everything they were doing, dealing with everything financially, emotionally, my mom was in college at the time, getting her teaching degree, that kind of stuff. The community really did come through. I mean, the local fire department and police departments ensured that I actually got a Christmas that year whenever I was going through cancer. My school did a big fundraiser where it was called Links of Love, where kids wrote on these pieces of paper and then linked it together, just little notes to me and little things to, like, hey, keep going, that kind of stuff. And I mean, it was a lot of links. I mean, it took up my entire yard. And I remember being young, bald, and having those links of love linked together, and we made a J and a B out of it. We put it in the yard. So it was really cool to see that support from afar. Whenever I came back, like, yeah, it was kind of interesting because it was almost like business as usual. Like, hey, Jacob's back playing. He may have went through this crazy thing, but it's, hey, that's over now. It's time to go out and have fun and win this game, right? So I wouldn't say there was a big, standing ovation for me to get back out there on the court with, but people were like, wow, yeah, that's the kid who had cancer last year and now he's playing again. So
by the way, I kind of like that you didn't, I don't think you yourself wanted to be seen as this inspiration. You just want to get back out there and play, right? You're 11, 12 years old. Why don't you just get back out there and feel that? Now,
yeah.
You mentioned fundraising. You actually, in your 20s now, are doing that through X, and I'm very fascinated because you literally use the monetization you get to benefit foundations. Tell me what that's about.
Yeah, well, throughout my cancer experience, I've been very fortunate to come in contact with a lot of great organizations and just nonprofits and charities that have not only helped me, but helped, countless other cancer survivors. One of those being Cancer for College. I actively work with them in fundraising. Just in my free time, I've helped set up events with them here in the Charlotte area, and we've had a lot of great impacts over the years. That's the charity I work with that Will Ferrell is a big supporter of, and so it's cool to be able to work with him on some of that stuff. So I really got into doing fundraising and charity stuff probably as I was going through high school, just as ways to not only benefit the community, but also, it helped me with scholarships, and Cancer for College ended up paying for a large majority of my college. So I ended up graduating debt free, which is, crazy to think about these days. But whenever I started on Twitter or X, I didn't really have much of a platform. I think I had maybe 300 followers after the first few months, and I was just talking about the Yankees and making connections with people. But as it grew and as more and more people interacted with my stuff and I got the opportunity to monetize and that kind of stuff, I'm like, wow, I said, this could be a really cool opportunity to, use the monetization that I'm getting from other people interacting with me, engaging with me for a good cause. So what I do is basically whenever Twitter decides to pay me a Twitter check every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks or how often they do it, what I'll do is I'll put out a question to everybody that follows me, everybody in the community, in the Yankees Empire community, or, wherever else. Say like, hey, tell me a nonprofit or a charity that means something to you. And what I'll do is every time I get one of those checks, I'll take all those names of those organizations and I'll put them in a random spinning wheel, and then it'll randomly select that charity. And of course, I look at it and make sure it's legit and a good nonprofit and that kind of stuff. And then I'll just donate the entirety of my monetization check to that charity because I don't need the money really that Twitter's trying to give me on this stuff. And believe me, it's not a lot. Like, this isn't a ton of money. It can be, anything from $15 to $40 every couple of weeks. But I think it's just a small way that I can give back and not only doing something good for that nonprofit, but also making that person that engages with me feel like they've made a difference too by voicing their support for this charity, because everybody has a reason why they want to support a charity, whether it's a personal experience or something like that. So it's I love giving people the opportunity to help make a difference in whatever way they can.
And I know that you also make a difference by going out there and speaking about your story. I mean, you're out there doing public speaking on your story, Jacob. What are the reactions after you're done and you're off the stage, if you will? Like, people can run up to you and say, "Oh my God, this story is amazing." Like, what's the reaction?
I love that question. Yeah, I have been up on stage talking about my story since probably high school. I would be, whether it's a fundraising event or if I was speaking directly to insurance companies about, like, hey, we still have ancillary things that happen to us after treatment, and this is why it should be covered, like that kind of stuff. Just different messages that I'm putting out there. Whenever I do my public speaking, I try to keep it fairly lighthearted, like a light roller coaster. I try to keep things humorous in a way, but then I'll get real and say, like the things that actually happened and how this affects me and what I'm doing today and how it should affect you and that kind of stuff. And whenever I do get off stage, it's usually a mixture of laughter and crying from people, which I've always thought was really funny. It was because I'll be up on stage and I'll tell a joke about something that happened with me in treatment, or I'll just kind of humorously talk about my experience, just kind of an offhand type way. And I've had people after the show or after me up there speaking saying, like, "Hey, man, you should look into being a comedian someday or something." And I'm like, okay. But then I've had other people that have come up to me just bawling their eyes out, like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing," and all this other stuff, which makes me feel weird because I'm just talking about my story. That's not what I'm trying to get out of it. I want you to get the message. It's not about me and what I went through. It's about the reality of the situation and how that you can have an impact on people that have went through it like me, and to help inspire you to make that impact. So it's definitely been an interesting reception whenever all positive though, whenever
Well,
I get to talk about it.
it's so interesting because when my NICU nurses were around, and the NICU doctor who just passed away, by the way, a couple months ago, Dr. Sharvar, but they would have reunions, and I always loved going back to speak. So, did they ever have you at your reunions for the hospital that you were at? Did they ever do that type of thing?
Yeah, I wish we did do more reunion type stuff. Like, I remember whenever I was still going back for my checkups and my immunotherapy, I had to do that in clinic for years after I was out of treatment, up until I was 21, and then I was able to do it at home. I was able to do like a home healthcare thing. We would do like a small little, hey, 10 years out of chemo celebration or something like that, with just the nurses and doctors. But yeah, I wish we did do more reunions. More of what I've had the opportunity to speak at is, fundraising events or events for the hospital, for the charity organizations that I'm working with, to, raise funds for, their nonprofit doings. So.
Jacob, do you get to talk to kids who are dealing with cancer today, going through cancer treatment today?
Yeah, whenever I had first come out, there was a camp that was around me called Camp Care. It was a camp for cancer survivors, because a lot of those kids didn't get to go to camp because they were undergoing cancer. So I went to that camp up until the time I was 16, because they'll let you keep going, after you're out of treatment, up until I was 16. And then when I was able, I became a counselor. And it was real funny because I was always the counselor over the 11 and 12-year-old boys. So whenever I would be the cabin leader of all these kids that were my age whenever I was going through cancer, and a lot of them were going through it too. So I got to have a lot of really nice one-on-one conversations with these kids that were wise beyond their years. And I remember people always saying that, about me when I was that age, because I was going through all that stuff, and makes you grow up quick. But I really got to see the other side of that situation, talking to those kids and how they're dealing with it in different ways, but still great ways. So yeah, that was definitely a terrific experience.
You just mentioned something interesting, wise beyond your years. Do you feel like undergoing this whole ordeal and experience grew you up a little faster than maybe even your classmates?
I think so, in some very specific ways. There's there's pros and cons with it. So, for me, I definitely got to see what mortality looks like. I had friends that I was going through it with that unfortunately didn't make it through like I did. I got to understand what happens in all these hospitals and just these medical areas of uh, just understanding like how an IV pole works, asking questions about the medicine, and understanding that kind of stuff as 11-year-old.
Were you listening into conversations that you may not have been may not have been privy to? Like, were you always sort of trying to eavesdrop to hear what your parents' information were getting, or what?
I wouldn't say so. My parents were always very open with me on the conversations that were happening. Uh, I remember whenever my mom basically came in the room to tell me that I had cancer, it was, she just said the perfect thing, right? And I just immediately understood it. There wasn't any tears from me, or, we both just kind of looked at each other and said, hey, let's get after it. Let's beat this and move on. But yeah, I mean, I can recall that maybe there were a couple murmurings in the hallways as I would go down, and I would like say I was in a particularly bad point in my treatment where they didn't think if I was going to make it or not. I do remember hearing some stuff about that, but it never really affected me at that age.
Talk about socialization in the hospital, because you're 11 years old. I'm sure you wanted to socialize with, kids and even family members. Like, talk about the socialization, because there was also this idea that you had to be sort of distant from everybody because of the germs and whatnot, right? Was there that idea?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was definitely immunosuppressed. I mean, all my counts were down, so I had to be very careful with that kind of stuff. I was in the 6th grade whenever I was diagnosed, and I was 11 years old, so I was getting ready to go through puberty, which is a crazy time in everybody's life, and and I'm missing school. So I'm not seeing my friends at school. I'm not seeing all the changes that are happening there. Understanding, what's cool, what's not cool anymore. So what I ended up doing is I made a lot of friends with a lot of nurses and child life workers. I remember getting yelled at all the time because I would go out into the hallways and ride my IV pole like a scooter because I just wanted to go out and meet people, talk to people. I mean, it didn't matter if they were a doctor, a nurse, another kid that was also going through it like me. So I craved that socialization and making those connections with whoever I could at that age. So, and then that transition out of that back into regular school life, what's cool, what's not cool anymore. It almost made those things feel not as important in some cases, but it was definitely gave me another perspective about it.
100%. Now, I know you travel a lot, right? So traveling and adapting to your current stage of your health right now, is that still a thing? Is that like something you have to be mindful of even as you're traveling?
Kind of, sort of. Like I mentioned before, I have monthly immuno immunotherapies that I do for my immunoglobulin cells. Basically, my IgG is too low for my body, and what your immunoglobulin G carries are like your vaccinations, and it's basically a protein in your blood that leave historical tracers through things that you've already beaten, whether it be different viruses or bacteria. So mine's too low. So what I have to do once a month is I have to stick a few needles in my thigh, alternate thighs each side, and basically infuse it for an hour and a half. And what I try to do is I try to line up my trips, like if I'm going on business or if I'm, just traveling somewhere or I'm going to be around a lot of people. Like whenever I went up to New York this past June or July, I did my infusion right before I left. So I try to line up things like that. Now, daily life, I really don't think about it too much. I like to keep my hands clean. I mean, I wash my hands like 20 times a day, and I'm just kind of a naturally clean, orderly person. And I think cancer and going through treatment made me like that a little bit too. I like to keep things really nice. But yeah, I mean, it affects me in that way, but I don't have to do a whole lot of planning for it.
Well, that's interesting. And tell people your regular work when you're not on Twitter talking about the Yankees. What are you doing on the daily?
Yeah, it's funny. I am a product marketing manager for a large manufacturer of tape. So it sounds really fun and sexy. I know, right? But it's a really great job. I started out my career as a product manager in chemicals, went to do cleaning machinery, so vacuums and carpet cleaners, and then I made the transition to tape, which is it just was the right opportunity for me. But that's the daily job. I help launch products, develop marketing plans, campaigns, follow through on those campaigns. I have a lot of project management that I do whenever it comes to product focused project management. And yeah, it's a great job. I love what I do. It's my first time being a product marketing manager instead of just a product manager. So yeah, it's been a great way to grow my career and basically my professional life.
You said something just a couple minutes ago, which really struck me. You said that certain routines you have now is probably because of the cancer that you went through. So, as part of the awareness, is there a trauma that is, attached to it? Like, do you still have any trauma from that? And can people going through it expect trauma from their treatments?
I think that people definitely can expect some form of trauma. I mean, whether it be loss, whether you lose someone that you meet whenever you're in a cancer ward, or if you're a family member and someone's going through cancer, I mean, you can have that trauma of loss, trauma of pain and remembering that pain and all those things you went through. I think that can be a thing. Luckily, I don't feel like I've been negatively impacted too much with that kind of stuff. It may show through in other ways that I'm not aware of. That trauma is kind of weird that way. But I don't feel it affecting my day-to-day life too bad. No, fortunately, very fortunately. But I think for people, I think it's just understanding, what's coming and the best way to approach it, and really having a nice support system set up around you, whether it's your family, your friends, whoever else, whether you're part of an organization. There's different clubs of people that are all cancer survivors or people currently going through it. So just understanding, what's coming, what you're currently going through, and the best way to make it out of it. And, just try to be mindful about the things you're going through for it. So, but yeah, for me, not a whole lot of trauma issues, I would say.
Do the Yankees organization know your story by chance? Like, I know you tag them a lot, but do they know your story? Does anybody in the organization know your story?
I don't think so. Not from the Yankees organization. I remember the first time I went. My first time going to Yankee Stadium was last season. It's something I'd always wanted to do as a child, and I never got the opportunity. But whenever I started making big boy money, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go up there." So last year, I had the opportunity to go up there, and Anthony Rizzo, he's a cancer survivor as well. So I did a little mini campaign of trying to get people to be like, "Hey, Anthony Rizzo Foundation, Jacob's going up to the stadium. You should let him meet you and shake hands and that kind of stuff." And that I don't think he ever saw that, but that would have been a really cool opportunity, But I don't think anyone within the organization knows about my story. But they do a lot for people with cancer and stuff. So
They do, and I was just going to ask, when you see these guys, like I saw Rizzo and his teammates actually talking to a group of kids this past September, what's that do for you? Like, how does that make you feel when you see these guys take time out to be with these kids?
I think it's wonderful. I mean, Rizzo in particular has been one of my favorite players. I think he, as a man, is probably my favorite player on the team. And that's just taking performance and everything out of it. I just think he's just a class act. Everything that he does for his foundation, everything that he's done after being diagnosed and beating cancer himself. I mean, it's not just with the Yankees. I mean, he was doing this stuff back with the Cubs. I mean,
there's a reason why they did a whole 3-4 minute tribute to him, not just because of his playing days, but what he did in the community at Wrigley.
Yeah, Chicago loves him. And he definitely deserves it. So yeah, I mean, I love seeing stuff like that because it makes those kids feel so special, and it can be the small little things like that, like whether it's meeting a player or being going to some kind of seminar like that and having people really try to connect with your experience. Can really be a turning point for a lot of kids and stuff like that. So I absolutely love seeing that.
I want to talk about your parents real quick, because obviously you said you're their only kid, and as you know, my family's only kid too, so it's like we're fortunate that we were able to get all the care from them in the world, right? So when all this happened in 11, what was your parents feeling? You said they were kind of calming you down, but did you sense any nerves from them? How was their demeanor?
Yeah, it's we just kind of bared down and got through it. I mean, this was 2008 too. I mean, this is right in the middle of the recession. My dad ended up getting laid off. Like I said, my mom was still going through college. This was her second time going to, she had started out life as a hairdresser, then she was going back to school to be a teacher. And I remember telling her, like, hey, if I don't make it, this is me as an 11-year-old, like, hey, if I don't make it, keep going to school because you're going to want to do this after I'm gone. And so she's still going to school because I'm telling her that she still needs to go to school. All those different bills that were coming through, 25 or 28 different accounts paying on all of those, everything from radiology to surgery to, chemo, the pharmacy to everything coming through for the hospital. It was a lot. My parents, my mom, basically fighting with the hospital so we don't lose the house, that kind of stuff. So I mean, we were really preoccupied. I mean, I was preoccupied with fighting it. My parents were preoccupied with, taking care of me and trying to maintain some sort of lifestyle that was going on, that we had leading into it. And luckily they did. We caught some breaks there. We paid a lot of money. The insurance paid a lot of money. I mean, there was no more college fund or anything after that, but I came out of it alive, which is the best that we could have all hoped for there.
100%. And now you got a great girl by your side as well. I mean, I know she's your companion, your partner.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's a butthead, but I love her. She's, I think we've been together for 12 years now. So she's been with me through high school and college and into my adult life. And, it's been a great journey throughout all those years, learning each other and finding new ways to support each other. And of course, there's bumps in the road and things you got to go through. But yeah, she's definitely one of my big supporters on a lot of the things I do.
Love that. All right, let's talk about the Yankees Empire before we wrap up today. Where do you want to see it grow to? Because we've talked about this a lot, like how we can grow this group. I mean, just keep tagging the players and seeing if they jump on. But what's your vision for Yankees Empire?
Yeah. Well, one milestone's coming up. We're right at 19,000 members, which is already the largest baseball community on X. But we're closing in on 20,000 members. We're going into the postseason, so we have some new things coming up with some giveaways that we're working through and figuring out how to get stuff done for that for members. So that's coming up. From a vision perspective, we're doing a lot of work with external organizations and internally through X as well. So externally, we're working with a lot of different small businesses and now larger businesses for sponsorships to help, support their brand while they support ours, give our members the benefits of, getting money off if they were to purchase something there, or if they have a service that they want, basically saving them some money down the road, or, giving away some of their products. So we've been working through a lot of that. And then internally, we're working directly with X's engineers, the people employed by Elon to help better the community, kick out some of those bugs. One thing about the community is there's no bots, and that's because all of us on the mod team, we look and accept or deny every single account that requests through. And sometimes that can be like 60 to 70 bots. So we're trying to really fix that bot problem on Twitter as a whole. So we have a lot of really great things coming up. I think one of the big ways we're just trying to find more and more benefits for people to actually join and make Yankees Empire, which I believe it already is, but make Yankees Empire the best place to talk Yankees ball. I mean, we have our guidelines. We try to keep people safe. We don't want to censor anybody unless
they seem to hate our positivity sometimes. I don't understand that, Jacob.
Sometimes, but hey, we can be.
But no, it's great that you continue to be positive for the Yanks. That's what we need, right? That's what we all need to hear that more. I gotta say, for those who don't know, Marcus Stroman shouted out the chat, and I got to say that here.
Oh yeah, it was interesting because Stro, he saw a post from one of our community members, and he ended up quote tweeting it with his own little verbiage on there too. So it was really cool to see a player interact with the community. We have some great members of the community. I mean, we have Hoke, who's in the community. I believe Katie Sharp was in the community as well. We have some of the guys from Talking Yanks, like Joe's McFly's in the community. So we're getting more and more people. But I would love to have a player join one day. They probably would never want to, with as crazy as everybody is in there. But it'd be cool just to see one join just for a little bit, you know.
Oh, 100%. I'm right there with you. So we got to just keep pushing it. And one of the things that Darth talks about a lot, a little inside baseball, but it's worth noting for those in the group, is to always, when you're quoting it, just keep the Yankees Empire tag on that. I love that idea, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jacob, before we go, how can the Yankees be unstoppable? I mean, they're at the 1-game mark to clinch the division, but this team, when they're gelling, looks kind of unstoppable. Hope I'm not jinxing anything here, but
yeah, well, if anything does happen, I will directly blame you. But but no, it's I think it's really just pieces are falling together at the right time. And I know a lot of people hate whenever you say this, but a lot of times the postseason's a wash. I mean, you got to click on at the right time. You got to catch fire. You got to play well together. And it seems that, here at the end of the season, that's happening. I think a lot of it's just understanding, the lanes and where players need to play, making the right decisions in the bullpen, making sure that we have the best lineup out there every day. But I think that you can really tell that these guys really care and support each other. I mean, if you take a lot of Juan Soto's comments that he said after we clinched a berth, you have Jazz Chisholm in the locker room saying like, "Hey, I love this team. I love the Yankees. We're going to go win a World Series." I mean, that speaks volumes, that kind of stuff. So I think just keep on doing what they're doing. Stay confident, play the game that they want to play, and bring it home. We definitely need 28.
We do. Now, you're also a big baseball fan, and you've been not complaining, but you've been sort of joking about how they really are, as the kids say today, glazing Shohei and not giving Judge the credit. And I agree. I think, what Shohei's been doing is good. But look, here in New York, you've got two guys, Aaron Judge and Lindor, really carrying these teams in a lot of ways, and they're not getting any respect. The Dodgers don't need Shohei. I'm going to say it right here. But yeah. Lindor's needed on the Mets, and Judge is clearly, the leader on the Yankees. I mean, just give more respect. That's all we're saying, right?
Yeah, well, part of that is I love to piss people off sometimes. So I like making those little funny memes or saying things just to bait people into some reactions, because I know they're super passionate about it. I could talk about it forever because I do feel a little similarly that their market. I'm a marketing guy, so from an MLB perspective, their repetitive marketing efforts, it's over time. I feel like it's going to hurt more than help. I mean, they just keep banging on this cash cow whenever they have an extremely diverse product with extremely diverse players. I mean, you have Jose Ramirez that's knocking on the door of a 40-40 season, and I think I haven't seen anything about that. You had Brent Rooker, who had an amazing season with the A's. Of course, that's the
A's actually are really set up for the next few years. It's just a shame that, and you know what? You can blame the owner all you want, but Oakland City is just terrible when it comes to sports. They've lost 2 already. There's going to be third. So I think blame should be shifted onto the city of Oakland as well. But no, they're leaving Oakland really stacked. I think they're going to be formidable, and you never thought you'd say that about the A's recently.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the A's has always been kind of a farm team for us. Like we end up buying out their players as they reach, free agency. And it's going to be interesting to see what their strategy is over the next few years. I don't have a lot of hope for them. I feel really bad for their fans out in Oakland, that kind of stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how successful they are out in Vegas. I think that they will be from a business standpoint. But yeah, they are set up. They have a lot of really young, exciting players. There's a lot of teams like that have these really young, exciting diverse players that are, lightning rods that should definitely be getting some more spotlight on them. And I'm not in with the whole Shohei thing. I'm not saying that every post should be about, Aaron Judge, or that they shouldn't be spotlighting Shohei Ohtani most of the time. But, eight different posts within an hour it's kind of ridiculous, especially when you have an extremely diverse league with lots of benefits for those customers that are watching your product, that are passionately watching your product.
Shout out the Tigers. Look at what they've been doing all season now since the trade deadline. By the way, it looks to me like that deadline really worked out for the Tigers because they are now right in the middle of this, and that's something we weren't talking about. But they are a story. They are a story of the year as far as I'm concerned. Even if they don't make it, what a story!
Yeah, and it's crazy too because they traded away Jack Flaherty, and they would have never done that. It's funny. It's funny how that worked out because it basically means that the front office gave up, and that the clubhouse was like, "Hey, we're not done yet," and then they started playing really well. So that makes that front office decision to get rid of one of their starting pitchers look really dumb. And I don't know how they feel about that, but that'll be a story for another day. I've always thought that the Tigers this season would be a really fun team to watch.
And they got rid of that Karsten Kelly. I thought he was pretty good for the Tigers. I mean, that was a bit of a surprise trade too. But
yep,
we'll have to see what happens. But for now, Jacob, we're almost there. About a week away till postseason, and so much to go. We'll have to catch up in October because I think we're gonna have a fun one here.
Yeah, man, for sure. Sounds good. It's always good to talk to you.
Jacob B Speaks on X. Follow him and follow us at the Yankees Empire. Thanks for joining the One Leg Up Network.